Mayor. Sorry I'm late.
Hey.
My wife just got home from the hospital.
Council meeting for. No problem. Hope everything's okay.
Yeah, she's doing good, thank you.
Of September 9th. Can we have the roll call, please?
Mayor Niehaus,
Here.
Mr. Magistrelli,
Here.
Mr. Zur, Ms. Domzowski, Ms. Domzowski,
I'm here, sorry.
Mr. Hips,
Here.
Ms. Nowak, and Mr. Voitush,
Here.
Mr. Bryan. Mr. Bryan,
Here, sorry, I was muted.
Mr. Wazowski,
Here.
Chief Zolgis,
Here.
Chief Buss,
Here.
Mr. Walters,
Here.
and I am here.
Can we get the approval of the minutes of August 26th, please?
So moved.
Motion by
Second.
Mr. Hips, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by who, Mr. Magistrelli?
Yes.
Okay. Any comments, questions, or amendments? Okay. Mr. Voitush,
Yes.
Magistrelli,
Yes.
Mr. Hips,
Yes.
Ms. Domzowski,
Yes,
okay, minutes are approved.
Reports of the municipal officers. The mayor at this time would like to report that the Dollar General is now open. It opened today around this afternoon. So stop in and check it out. Moving on to the finance director, Ms. Potvin.
Only thing I have this evening is a presentation by Mike Troyan. This is regarding our health insurance renewal for next year. And I'll let Mike go
Okay.
ahead and make a presentation for us.
We're updating the portal terms of service.
So the village is set for the health insurance renewal effective November 1st of this year. Leading up to that, Medical Mutual has reached out, made contact with our agency, providing us with some large claimant data and a projected initial increase of 16.7% on the medical and prescription drug. In light of everything going on with COVID, business disruption, tax revenue down, and their underwriters attempting to try to get renewals wrapped up quickly and efficiently, they've presented us with an option to accept a no bid adjusted renewal number. Their initial offer was to come down to 11%. Went back to them and told them that. And they ultimately came back with what they're saying is going to be their best no shop number, which is an 8% increase. So that really leaves the village at this point with two choices. One is accepting the no bid increase of 8%, which has a roughly an annual increase in the village of about $51,700 based on current enrollment. Another option is to reject the no bid offer by Medical Mutual. They've already presented us with a 16.7% increase. We would have to take that renewal along with individual employee medical history questionnaires out to the marketplace and obtain competitive proposals. And then if we were successful in obtaining competitive proposals, Medical Mutual would review those competitors' proposals and revisit their 16.7%. So the risk for the village in declining the no shop number is that we don't wind up with competitive data to pressure the incumbent carrier to move off of their renewal or move off of it down below the 8%.
Mike, this has to be enacted pretty quickly, does it not?
Well, because they've offered a no shop number, the underwriters are always suspicious. And so the longer time goes by, the underwriter thinks we're basically taking their offer out to the market to see if anyone can be. So they actually
Right.
came to me last week indicating that they wanted an answer by Friday or they were going to pull it off the table. I indicated to them that you had scheduled for this week, and that it was going to basically be the first review of council of the information, but that the hope was that by sometime towards the end of this week, you'd be in a position to be able to communicate the decision. If we needed more time, I could certainly go back to Medical Mutual and sort of the underwriter just being concerned about us shopping it. I mean, if I gave them something and
Sure.
we're not doing that, we're really not under any tight time frame, given the fact that it's early September and the renewal doesn't go into effect until November.
Does anyone have any questions?
I think that the 8% is probably about the norm right now. Correct me if I'm
Yeah.
wrong, Mr. Troyan. Yeah,
No.
it's about the norm, be anywhere from 6.5% to 10% right now. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're accurate. So medical trend right now, which is nothing more, is so if you performed exactly as the insurance carrier expected, medical trend, the cost of delivering the same level of care from year to year is increasing by 9 to 11%, mostly driven by prescription drug costs. So right now, I could tell you out of all of the renewals that we've had this year, we've had 3 that are below the 8% number, and a very significant number above that, ranging anywhere from low double digits up to high 20s to 30%, depending on the performance of the group. But if you're performing in a range in which they would expect or target, then an 8% renewal increase. I mean, I honestly hate to tell anybody that 8% increase is good, because it's an 8% increase on your current cost. But it is certainly well within the range of most of the increase.
Brad, I'd like to make a motion to get this on tonight's agenda if we could.
Gary,
Hello?
we can do this by motion today, and then that would give Mike the authority to go ahead and let Medical Mutual know we're going to renew it. He can get the official paperwork, and then we would do it by legislation next meeting to make it official, but he can indicate them that this is our intention. So if you want to make a motion to authorize the renewal at the 8% figure, that would be.
I would like to do that.
Okay, motion made by Mr. Vojtich. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Magistrelli. Any other questions or comments or discussion? Okay, hearing none. Mr. Vojtich,
Yes.
Mr. Magistrelli,
Yes.
Mr. Hips,
Yes.
Ms. Domzowski.
Yes.
Okay, so Mike, if you can indicate to them that that is our intention, and we will formally pass the legislation 2 weeks from now. If you can get me the sheet at that amount, at the 8% with the rate increases like we usually do. And just so Ms. Potvin, Mr. Troyan and I have discussed looking into in the future the option of some sort of other plan, like a health savings account option, if there's a way where we could, get the employees a situation where they wouldn't be hurt by that option in the first year by funding it, and it would save money for the village, allowing us that type of plan change and work for the employees. That's something we would be interested in looking into just to see how the numbers work. So I think that's your intent, Mike, right, to kind of pursue
So I
that
can
option.
provide Medical Mutual with confirmation that the village wishes to accept the no shop offer. At that point, they'll release the adjusted renewal at 8%. I'll illustrate those rates for you. And also at the same time, ask them to provide us with pricing on an HSA option. Whether or not you do it this year, it'll at least give us a good perspective over how effectively we might be able to make that work with funding from the village for the employee savings accounts.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have any other questions for Mike? Okay,
Thank you,
You're
everyone.
welcome to stick around, Mike, but understand if you have other things to do.
I appreciate it. I
Okay,
appreciate everyone's attention. Thank you. Have a good evening.
You.
thank
You
you.
too. Ms. Potvin, does that conclude your report?
That does.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to the engineer, Mr. Lasowski.
He's muted. I'll see if we can unmute him.
Rich, you are muted. You need to unmute yourself.
All right, he's good.
There you
Good
go.
now?
Yes,
Okay.
you're
You're
good. Rich.
good.
Okay, signal service, I was expecting him to have the pole in by now. They haven't called me to tell me they're ready to put anything in, so I still expect to have it by the end of this month, have it placed. I looked over, I get the daily reports on rainfall from Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District of all the rain gauges in their territory. I think they have about 26 rain gauges. They have one at Macedonia on State Route 82 and one at Oakwood on Broadway. The Oakwood's actually a little bit closer than the Macedonia one to us. And we've had surprisingly, this spring and summer, we've had 5 unusually heavy storms. 2 of the storms were 25-year storms. The last 2 storms we had, Labor Day and the one at the end of August. And then we had one storm that was a 20-year storm, one storm that was a 7-year storm, and one storm that was a 4-year storm. And this is all in 1 year. So that's highly unusual. Some areas of Cleveland actually got a little bit more than Northfield got. Some of them had 100-year storms. We can't do anything about that. Everyone knows that the problem at the shopping center with that sewer that goes across State Route 8 and then goes between Ready Wash and Russo's building is way undersized, and the storm sewer under the roadway is undersized. That is, at some point, the village is going to have to address that at some point, fixing that situation. But that situation is bad all the way downstream to Victory Drive. And I explained, we had a grant to fix half of that system. And I think 2008, we had a 50% issue 2 grant at that time. And we had to turn it back because we couldn't come up with our 50%. But what we want to do now, we talked last council meeting about the temporary dike on the ice cream property on the shopping center. But we need a trench drain across the driveway that goes into the shopping center. Jason was up there during the heaviest rain, and he saw, and my calculations showed too, that there's actually more water going through there than it's going through the ice cream place. And I recommended a couple years ago that we put 3 catch basins in on State Route 8 right in front of the shopping center. The state fixed the one, put 1 in, and we didn't put the other 2 in. I still recommend at least 1 more be put on State Route 8 plus the trench drain, and Jason's going to talk about that, about some pricing he's gotten on doing that. The problem with the shopping center is that trench drain will be on the shopping center's property, not within our right-of-way. So we'll have to get some type of easement to do that, so we can control that. So that's something to think about. And then one thing that came up during the last week, the Issue 2 Committee, District 8, has set up meetings for new applications for next year. Originally, the applications were due at the end of the first week in July of this year, but because of coronavirus and the funding with the state, everything was delayed. But now they pushed back applications to November 4th. You can put in applications for an issue 1 project. If you're interested in trying to get any money for stormwater abatement, that's the place to go for the big bulk of money is issue 1. If you're interested in roadway work, I explained before a little bit, Coventry Drive, I can't see them ever getting a grant for issue 1, issue 1 grant for that, because there's just not enough traffic up there. A loan, it's an iffy situation on loan. That loan depends on how many communities apply for loan money. Historically, loan money has been available because most communities just apply for grants. But in the last few years, Akron's been applying for both loans and grants. So it's taken a chance. If you want to apply for a loan, if you would, you'd apply for a 90% loan on that project. But,
Rich, do you have any information on the amount of money that's available for this year?
it should be roughly the
Less
same
than
as
usual or the same? It's the same?
same as this year. Yeah, it should be the same as this year. One thing they did, though, this past year's program, they delayed awarding the grants. After July 1st, they normally award the grants for the year. And they delayed that because legislation, the Ohio legislatures hadn't passed the funding for it. Well, they did pass it in middle of July, so they awarded it. But they were taking all the extra money that came back to them. Like we sent back, I think about $160,000 for Houghton Road that we didn't use, that we were under budget. So that goes back into the pot, and they put that into the projects they awarded for this year. So it's going to be close to what they awarded last year, though. So it should be. It's always up to the legislature to pass the bill. But this is one of the most favorable programs in Ohio. So the legislature is awful reluctant not to act on it because nobody says anything bad about the issue 1 program. So I'm reasonably sure it'll be passing next year unless this coronavirus just gets worse and worse until next year. But if you want me to apply for something, do whatever you want, and just let me know.
And your thoughts on the chances of success on a Route 8 stormwater project as opposed to Coventry?
Well, like I said, we did get a grant before on it. We got a 50% grant before. I would feel reasonably confident. I'd say reasonably confident, say 60 to 65% confident that we can get a grant on that. Because it's in the area of an older infrastructure. It's definitely a problem area. We'll score some fairly high points on that. So, but you never know. Every year it's sort of a crapshoot because you don't know how much money Akron's going to ask for every year. There's just no way of knowing. Some years, the one year they took every single project that wasn't designated as a special set aside for a township or for county government. So, but they gave back some of those. After they got them, they changed their heart and said, "There's a couple projects we won't do this year," and give that money back to somebody else to do some projects. But they always take over the majority of the money, over 50%. So that's the only thing. The one thing favorable for us here is I'm on the technical committee, which scores the projects. So we've gotten far more than our fair share in Northfield Village than anybody else in the county but Akron. In fact, percentage-wise, we may have done, for our population, may have outdone Akron for how many dollars per capita we've gotten over the years versus every other community. And I've always said the best thing really any mayor did since I've been in office, I've been serving, is they've got me on that issue 1 committee. And when I got on there, I didn't think too much of it, but I found out it's a good thing to have. So,
Which, when do you need to know by to be able to get the application?
well,
work
the
done?
application itself, I can do in a couple weeks. It's just the more of the plans you have done, the more points you get. If you're talking about grants monies, you pretty much need 90% plans to get the 15 points there. If you're talking about loan money, if you got really about 35%, you got a reasonable chance, still a pretty good chance with loan money. But the grants are so competitive because it's free money that you have to get every point you can get. You know, everything you can, any way you can get points, you have to do it. So yeah, it's if
Would you
you're
wanna
talking
know
about
by-
two. Yeah.
Would you want to know by the next meeting this month or the first meeting?
Yeah,
in
by the
October?
next meeting would be, I'd have a reasonable amount of time to get something that looks reasonable to them. I mean, they certainly won't be anywhere near final plans, but it's something that shows them that, yeah, you've made some effort on this. So, but I've seen projects on loans that were submitted without anything but a schematic plan. And some of them had been funded because there was, that year, there weren't a lot of people applying for loan money. So, yeah, it's not a guaranteed thing. So, but if you can let me know by next meeting, I can work something out on this. So,
Okay, and then the project start date still isn't until July 1st earliest?
that's what it is. Currently, the project start date would be, the contracts will be sent out July 1st.
Okay.
The way it
thank
stands
you.
now, yeah. And let's see what else I got. The traffic signal malfunctioning at Meadow Lane and at the fire station. The Meadow Lane one, I got called from Signal Service from this. I got a call from the police chief too about it. They got some complaints that the people on Meadow Lane itself, coming out of the industrial park, the light wasn't turning green for them, and that signal's was put in 1999, so it's been 20 years, and we haven't had that problem before that I've ever been told about. And Signal Service, they went out and they looked at it, and they says the loop detector in there, it's not registering on some people. So they want to cut a new loop detector. I talked to the mayor about it. So what they had to do, they put the signal on fixed time, which means every leg of the intersection gets green time every cycle, rather than being actuated signal. That signal happens to be very inefficient operating that way, but it works. And it meets the ODOT requirements, the code. It's just inefficient. If you actually did studies on how much it costs you to operate that to traveling public, it's cheaper to fix it than it is to operating public, but the operating public's not giving us $1 a day to operate. You know, we're doing it for free. So we're not doing anything until our budget gets back in balance, and then we'll recut the loop and put it on actuation again. Then the fire station was registering false actuations on the fire station drive, so it'd give green for the fire station drive when there was nobody there. And during our 30-day test, we call the burn-in period, that never occurred, and the signal worked fine during the 30 days and it passed. So at that point, you have to accept the signal. And so I went up and looked at this and checked it out. And every time I've been up there, I think it's been 4 or 5 times from the construction to now, it always worked when I was there. It always worked. So I go up there this time and one day, and it did not, it actuated on when I stood in the area, me as a person, not as a car, which it shouldn't do. So it was reading me as a car. And then it wasn't actuating for my vehicle a couple times and the fire truck a couple times. Well, it's back to working fine. As far as I know, it hasn't malfunctioned since. And but what causes that? These things aren't 100%. And if you have a glare from the sun or fog, sometimes shadows, but usually we have a colored camera, takes colored pictures. If you have a colored camera, shadows usually aren't a problem. And heavy weather, like heavy rainfalls or snow, especially snow getting on the lens of the camera, can give you false readings. We just got to keep track of that, seeing if it gets serious, and see if we have to try to align the camera a little bit differently to try to stop. It's probably some more like glare. I think Signal Service thought it was shadows, but the color cameras usually aren't prone to the shadow problem. So we'll just keep track of that right now. And you know, if anything else comes up, work on it. 2 other things I don't have on my paper are the, we had a mandatory Summit County Soil and Water video meeting with all the communities in the North Summit County today about method requirement number 6 of the stormwater permit program, which we belong to and all these other communities belong to. And what they're trying to do now is go to, instead of 1 yearly inspection of our facilities, to 4 quarterly inspections, 4 inspections per year. They're trying to work something out with the regional sewer district for funding on that. We'll see how that goes. And EPA suspended their audits of the communities because of coronavirus. They're not coming out. They tried 1 video audit and that didn't go too well. So they suspended the program right now. When they start back up though, they advised us to be prepared for a rather harsh interrogation on these meetings. We went through a federal EPA audit. Jason and I think it's been about 8 or 9 years ago, and that was pretty tough. It was a 1.5-day audit. They said the Ohio EPA is pretty tough. Hudson had one, and Hudson, they were on the line with us, and they talked about it. And they say basically, prepare to do whatever the EPA says you have to do it. Because I asked a direct question of what if we decided not to do something that they told us to do? And they said, well, we'll get involved with the Attorney General's office of the state of Ohio, plus the EPA, and you'll negotiate for a long time. It'll buy you time. It'll buy you time. But in the end, you'll be doing it. And so I just want to remind people we're on this stuff with EPA is they're serious about all this stormwater pollution control stuff. And the man who's heading the office, Borishevsky now, they shipped him over to Cuyahoga County for a few years to run their program in Cuyahoga County. He's back in the Summit County. And he was the one that issued the letter for a $10,000 fine for the village in, I think it was 2007. doing with the Meadow Lane project down there. So we're going to try to do whatever it takes to keep them happy. We're not, I don't think we're going overboard with anything, but we certainly want to keep our stormwater permit with the county in this. So that's it on that. And the last thing is Everstream Cable sent plans in to put a new cable line from the power pole at the City Hall corner at North Plaza Drive down North Plaza behind the shopping center, and it'll go into the assisted living facilities to serve them. And I just had one comment on it. We can't stop them from doing that, but there's some conduit they're going through. It looks like it's right on the border of the shopping center and the assisted living property. Now, he can go on the assisted living property and do this, that's fine. But he can't put that conduit, he can't put the wiring through on the shopping center without the shopping center's permission. So I told him, if you're on the shopping center, prove they're on the shopping center, first of all, or on assisted living. If they are on the shopping center, you have to get an easement from them to put that cable there for the service, the assisted living. And that's it.
Okay, thank you, Rich. Moving on to the law director, Mr. Brian.
I have a question for Rich, Mayor.
Okay.
Rich, what is the cost of that loop detector down there on Meadow?
It was either 3,000 or 3,500. And that's a going rate for those things, is about $3,500.
Okay, thank you.
Brad?
Yes, thanks, Mayor. All I have is the August 2020 Mayor's Court dispersal report for acceptance. Total to be dispersed, $9,360. Total due the state, $843.50. Zero to Stowe Municipal Court, $22.50. To the city of Stowe, $150 for restitution. Total to the village, $8,344. And if I could have a motion for acceptance.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Domzowski, seconded by Mr. Hibbs. Mr. Vojtish,
Yes.
Magistrelli,
Yes.
Mr. Hibbs,
Yes.
Ms. Domzowski.
Yes.
Right, motion's approved. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. Moving on to department heads, Police Chief John Zolgis.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. I did email out a report earlier today for August. And I also last week had emailed out a quote for the new radio system to switch over from 420 megahertz to 800. I didn't hear back from anybody. I don't know if anybody's got any questions on it. Okay, we had budgeted $90,000 and I think the quote came out to 109. Prices had went up. Macedonia, I was told by Chief Ripley that they are supposedly this month going to approve their end of it to finalize, the switch over. Sagamore Hills already went over to 800. So we are the last two in our community to do so.
And just to clarify, Chief, it's the state bid price, right?
Yes, correct. I believe it says that on the quote too.
I would like to see us move forward with this. Is this something we can get going now, Brad?
I believe the police department have spoken with Ms. Potvin about this, and this is something that we've been talking about for years that needs to be done. We need to switch over. So I think, Ms. Potvin, are we okay with moving forward?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to put this on.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Mr. Vojtish, seconded by Ms. Domzowski. Any other questions, comments, discussion? And Chief, you said you still are looking at whether we need the whole amount of the order or not, and if you can pare it down, you're looking into that, correct?
Correct. We still have to have a meeting with Macedonia, ourselves and BNC to see if we can negotiate some of the things out of there or at a lower price. So from what I see right now, this would be the most, but we're hoping to get it down a couple thousand at least.
Okay, so the motion would be an amount not to exceed $110,000, just to make sure we're okay. All right, anybody else? Any questions? Okay, Mr. Vojtish,
Yes.
Magistrelli,
Yes.
Mr. Hips,
Yes.
Ms. Domzowski.
Yes.
Okay, motion is approved.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. That's all I had, unless if somebody else had some questions.
Thank you. Moving on to the fire chief, Jason.
Good evening, Council, Mayor. I sent my report out. I really don't have much else to comment on. I was told this week that the storm siren I ordered should actually be arriving within the next 2 weeks. And I contacted Mr. Wyzowski to work with me on coming up with the best location. We already have the utilities marked down at the fire station for when we put that up. So that project's moving forward, and that's all I have tonight.
Thank you, Jason. Moving on to Mr. Walters, Service and Building Superintendent.
Mayor, Council, thank you. I guess I'll get into the water situation coming from the Plaza property that Rich had mentioned. We've visited many different scenarios and many different things we can do to the bigger bulk problem that can be resolved, which Rich has mentioned tonight, as far as the outlet going under Route 8 there. So looking in this, and Mayor and I were there again Monday morning with the Mr. Russo and Leslie from the flower shop. They flooded again. And being honest, it's just, it's hard to look at people. I mean, we are doing as much as we can, I believe, but at this point, we just got to try to get something done to alleviate this. As Rich talked about, we've had some bad rains, and it's the worst rains that cause it. I mean, normal rains, we're okay. So that being said, A&R Construction out of Walton Hills is willing to work with my department, so we'd work together. We contact ServPro, I believe it's called. I think Ms. Potvin has got the application recently. We've not dealt with them, but they basically handle like gas stations and service stations and things like this. So we have to build a trench drain. It's not like something you just, comes precasted like, kind you see for a 4-inch driveway drain. This would be 12-inch, and it'd be rather deep compared. We'd build it in, pour it a concrete, pipe it over into that basin that's just to the south of Handles and towards the intersection. So I think it would be good to have it on both lanes, but the majority of the water is coming out of the exit lane, if you understand. So right as you're coming by Handles, you're sitting at the light. The water is sheeting through there. I met Councilman Hips there too. We reviewed it, and he's got a lot of ideas, to be honest, that would work, but that's more in a different situation as we're in now. As the village, I'm not worried about, forgive me, but I'm not worried about fixing anything for the plaza. I'm worried about trying to stop water from entering that street, gathering. Yes, the pipe's kind of shallow, but as far as the volume, it's not taking the volume everybody's kind of worried about. But the outlet is very near. It's just on the other side, the back side of that building, so it's letting out pretty quick. A big problem is the great size of those two catch basins you see in the road. Water's got to wait to get down there. If there was a big open hole, it would go quicker, you know. And then obviously what led us to getting that is the windows or the openings of those basins that are on Route 8, you know, from the edge of pavement to the bottom side of the actual basin, how it crosses over. Those windows are very shallow. They're very small. So water's waiting to get in there. So much rushes in at one time, and it's waiting to get out. So as Rich talked about the trench chain, he likes the idea he came up with. You know, we all talked about that. Working with A&R Construction, we'd have to pay A&R Construction about $6,000. It's somewhere $55,000, $6,000. I have it figured that we'd have about $5,000 in material. The rest is like me and our guys working on it along with A&R Construction. So that being said, about $11,000 to max $13,000 to get this thing in, and potentially, hopefully, I'm not guaranteeing, but it's going to take a lot of that water from sheeting out in that road. It's got to help. Which Rich was talking about the other basins, and I think he's going to look into talking to the state about at least if we can get another one, at least a plan. I don't think we'll get to it this year, but right at that corner, get another type 3 basin over there to where we can collect some more water quickly right there, just so that water doesn't gather up in that intersection. It lays in that lane. I mean, we have to have the police. Anytime it now rains hard, if the police kind of got to pay attention, they got to get over and shut down the lane. Or if, you know, if we're working, if it's during normal hours, you know, one of the service trucks can do it. But, you know, like the other day, the police were relieving us, you know, depending on what's going on. So I think money-wise, it's money well spent. It's more about safety of people and then stopping 4 businesses in a town from flooding. Now, obviously, you know, you guys, council agreed to do something like the dike that we talked about. We didn't have plaza management didn't want to. They felt that it was maybe like a danger to them in a sense, you know, or it could cause issues. So let's just say I understand. I do believe that we thought about the things they were concerned about, and I didn't have that same concern, but you know, that's their property, fine. I mean, this is something that's got to be done. So if one of us don't get the lane blocked off and someone's coming in there pretty good and they don't realize how deep that water is, something can happen, especially if there's maybe a pedestrian walking down the street at that time. We got to try to get some of this water relieved in that area. The overall fix is obviously kind of expensive. So if we get this in, we can monitor it. It may really relieve the problem, but eventually we still got to fix the bigger part of the problem, as I said. So, and again, if we can maybe add that other basin at the corner, probably not this year, but more next year. So we're looking at right around $11,000 to max $13,000. Semi in-house, a contractor working with us to help us form it. You know, that's something that we don't do. We don't have them kind of forms. We're not doing it every day. Working together with another company, to me, it's a lot cheaper than just hiring it out. So
I know when we looked at it, you were talking about being able to connect into that box that you discussed, the drain. is there a way that we could push it closer and get it in the right of way? Do we have invert to just be able to kind of go around Howard, put it right in our right of way?
So if we, in the right-of-way area, Alan, that's what I'm talking about that type 3 basin that Rich was discussed. At that corner, it would be nice to install a type 3 basin where you got the catch in the road as well. But no,
Yeah.
we need to catch the water before. Honestly, everybody, there's a small 12-inch round basin, crock type inlet just as you come out of the back entrance towards the middle section or the main entrance of the plaza. In my opinion, that should turn into a trench drain eventually. To me, that's something I think we need to push the plaza to get done later. For this, we might be outside of our right of way, but in my opinion, we're still dealing in a sense of right of way and trying to stop all the water from collecting in the right of way area. So, but it would be beneficial to have another trench drain up in that area because listen, same thing, water's still going to get in this and it's going to be going. But eventually it's going to be full depending on how bad a rain is. And then once that's full, water still has to go by that. You know what I mean? And then it's still going to collect. So that's why it'd be really helpful to also add that basin at the corner that right as a vision taking a right out of there. It'd be right at the corner. In fact, right, they just replaced a fire hydrant right around there. So right in that area, do you agree with that, Rich?
Yeah, that Route 8 at that sag point in front of Russo's really should have a 3-basin system. But we have the one basin we have in now that the state put in, but one on either side, but the one on the north side can wait. The one on the east side towards the shopping center driveway, that should be put in right away as soon as we can. But we have to get state permission to do that.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. If we can have Rich just continue to look to see what the state's going to say, and then, but right now, if we can plan to get this, because the quicker the better. I can't stand to see them businesses. I feel so bad when Leslie is there cleaning, trying to get that place on her. Now, that being said, I'm also put violation notice going to them. They do have a 4-inch trench drain in front of them. It's not cleaned out properly. And honestly, it's not even proper for that, which Rich has told them. I've told them, that little 4-inch drain isn't doing it. But no matter what, I mean, at that point, to deal with the water that we're talking about coming at them that ends up flooding them, it's more than any drain would hold at that point. It's going to, but it would help to have it properly working. And even if they doubled that thing to an 8-inch, it'd make a big difference. But so I'm working. They have some other issues. There's some maintenance issues on that plaza that I found more as the mayor and I were there Monday. So that's that. I mean, I'm going to go out to that. Every little thing needs to be. So I've sent notice to Plaza that they got to fix their basins and some of their other issues with storm. I'm notifying I've left them a message, but I'm still getting the paperwork done for that plaza that is flooding. And then obviously this is where we're at, the cheapest way we can get this thing done as far as the trench drain within that roadway there, coming the exit of the plaza.
Okay, I know we have to have all these, verifications from the plaza, from ODOT, all these people to sign on to this project. But is this something right now that we just want to say, okay, not to exceed 12,000, and if we get all of it, then we have the money, we're ready to roll? Is this how we want to do this?
Yeah, I would. And I would ask that we not exceed 13,000, just so I know, I just want a little cushion in case, something comes up that I'm not seeing.
Brad, do you have any input on this?
No. Jennifer, do you have any issue with allocating some money to take care of this?
We're fine. He should definitely go ahead.
Jason, I
I'd
got a
like to
question.
make that motion.
I'd like to second that.
I
All
heard
right,
something.
motion by Ms. Domzowski, seconded by Mr. Voitovich. Nick, you have a question?
I have a question. Jason, you put in that trench drain, and we're gonna. Is there a chance of us overloading that basin? So all that water that's normally we're trying to divert, we're diverting it into a basin, and are we going to create another problem by doing that?
There's hardly any water getting in that basin, Nick.
Okay.
That's the problem. So here's the biggest thing, and Rich can correct me if I'm wrong, but on those types of basins, I mean, the steeper your crown is, if the higher the crown is in the middle of the road, the more likely you're going to have water pushed to the curb to make those things work. There is no crown there. So the water's just sheeting. That's a curb. That's for water coming alongside the curb. There's minimal water getting to that thing, honestly.
Well, that's a good thing then. Then we do know that we're not going to really overload.
I've been watching it. I know Rich has looked at it. Rich has a ton of numbers. Okay, but I've been watching this thing, and the only reason that I didn't do this before is just I was trying to stay with something that's closer to our right-of-way area and trying to find ways to do stuff until we can get the bigger problem handled. But no matter what, make things bigger than anything. There's a ton of runoff water coming from the plaza.
Yes.
Ton. And Howard doesn't believe that, but it is 100% true. Okay? And that's a fact.
I absolutely agree. I think we need to do something. And I was there Monday at those businesses, and it's disheartening for 3 or 4 times this year to be there and have them squeegeeing their business out while there's customers there.
Hey, Nick, that basin, we landed up, my surveyors, we measured the curb opening height on all the basins on Route 8 in Northfield. Those basins are designed when they come out of the factory with a 7-inch high window. That catch basin by Russo's on the east side of the road has a 1.5-inch opening because of the resurfacing over. And we were actually looking at one time planing the roadway, outer lane of the roadway, to get a bigger window opening in it. But the state suggested trying to put a separate box in front with a grate on it. So we have a combination window and grate catch basin, which is a lot more efficient than just the window inlet. But really, when we just had the 1.5-inch window on that basin, very little water was getting into those basins. Very, very little. I had to argue with ODOT about it. On the scene, I had the ODOT people about it. And I'm telling them, you only have 1.5 inches here and you need 7 inches, really. And they gave me a bunch of excuses. But they finally did decide to put the basins in for us with the grates on them in front of them.
I told them that as they were paving.
Yeah. So it's all the other basins on Route 8. None of them was as worse as that basin is. But there's other basins on Route 8 that only have 2.5-inch windows on them. Down by the old drive-in theater, there's one that you see water ponding down there. That has a real thin opening on it. That's
I
just
think
something.
we've all come to the agreement that something needs to be done, and we've talked about this now for 2 years or so. Jason, we give you the okay. We get this job rolling. What's the time frame? Because you know what, it's it's September. We're going to get more rain before the snow.
Well, that's why biggest thing is what Brad can work out, but we already are in contact. And like I said, we got the application for the company that installs the grates, the trench drain. It's just a matter of getting it all together and as soon as I get everything, get the okay, my hope would be in the next few days to have material. And then as soon as I can get the okay, we're going to go. So,
okay. I think we're all in agreement with that. And I know there's been a motion on the table and a second. So, I'm done. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? All right, we'll call the vote. Mr. Vojtich,
Yes.
Magistrelli,
Yes.
Phipps,
Yes.
Ms. Domzowski.
Yes.
Okay, motion is approved.
thank you. I appreciate it. All right. My last thing. I think everybody's going to probably think I'm coming from left field, but I've been looking around the building. We're looking at doing a few more things in the garage at Town Hall, and then I got a water issue I'm trying to deal with that's coming and kind of getting to the steps to go along the back. And I've said this many times over the years, but I want to say, and I've never really said in a council meeting, okay, but now I'm a resident of the village as well. So here, we have to do everything we can to come up with a plan to get our police department in a building. As I'm working up there, as we've been working up there and I'm trying to fix things and get, it's really honestly, forgive me, but it's embarrassing. So all the things that we have, a police department, I think we got to have nearly 20 guys in there, but how they operate out of that, it amazes me. All right. I don't know how they do it. And then on top of it, I know that they're not safely handling prisoners and everything else. And then everybody on top, and then we're trying to overload that small town hall with but my biggest point is them coming up and down them steps with a prisoner or anything like that. Those things are insanely unsafe for that kind of stuff. So I ask that in this next year at minimum and by 2021, we at least get a plan together. I'm telling you, it's vital. It's vital. It's time to get the police department out of the basement. I've butted heads with the police many times over a lot of different things. We all got to work together, but just seeing it and watching it and actually being around more, watching it as we're trying to fix the building. And then, the time that we're in today, it's just time. And I remember when I started here in 1995, I still was scratching my head. When I was a kid, I'd been in the police department a couple times. We won't talk about why, but anyway, I was a few times. Anyhow, you don't think of, but when I first started here, I was 21 years old and I'm looking and I'm like, what in the world? The more we get, it's just time. I don't know how we can operate. And honestly, to try to secure the area to where it's safe all the time and keep salt over there and keep things to where no one's going to fall on their face or break their, it's just something that we really got to consider. I know that when we were buying that old medical building, that was the talk. I don't think that we need some big crazy town hall for Northfield Village. I don't, but I do think that we need a modern police department. I know that our fire's in a good building. I feel like, we got good buildings for the service department. It'd be nice to have more storage, but that is nothing compared to having the police in the basement. It's just time. And I've said it to Chief quite a few times, and he's like, I know, but as the guy that tries to maintain things, and my department tries to maintain things. So I'm done. I'll shut up now, but I just want it out there. And that's all. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Walters.
Yep.
Does anyone have anything of Jason? Okay, moving on. Reports of the municipal boards and commissions. Mr. Hips, the Planning Commission.
No report this evening.
The Recreation Board did not meet from lack of a quorum. We kind of just, mingled a little bit online and just, nothing was really discussed, only just, some ideas for Halloween and things like that. But we could not have a formal meeting because we do not have a quorum. Cemetery Board has not met. Moving to the reports of standing committees, Mr. Magistrelli of Finance.
No report.
Mrs. Domzalski of Worlds and Public Works.
No report tonight, Mayor.
Mr. Scherer is not present. Does anyone from Health and Welfare have anything for us tonight? Hearing none, moving on. Mr. Wojtusz of Wages and Working Conditions.
No report, Mayor.
Mrs. Nowak is not present tonight. Does anyone have anything from Fire and Safety? Hearing none, moving on. Mr. Hips of Buildings and Grounds.
No report this evening.
Okay, moving on to legislation. Mr. Bryan.
Thank you, Mayor. First, we have resolution number 2020-32, an emergency resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a property donation agreement with Deborah Booth, executor of the estate of Jean M. Keno, and accept the donation of real property known as 10414 Electric Boulevard to the village. Ms. Booth contacted me yesterday and said we were good to go ahead with this transaction. So again, she's donating the lot to us. So there's restrictions. It has to stay in a natural state. There is a garage on the property. We can use that, or it's not in great shape. We are allowed to rebuild it, but not allowed to cut down trees. It's adjacent to the Pitluck Preserve. So again, it's being donated. We're responsible for all the closing costs.
I have a question.
Yes.
I know we in the preserve, but there's some trees that I need to get out along the right-of-way area coming up Electric that seem dangerous to me or that are impeding traffic. We cut some up. We've trimmed it this year a little bit in-house, but there's some bigger stuff, some dead stuff that really should, that's good to go, right? We can do things like.
Yes, I spoke to her. If it's in the right of way, we have permission to do what we need to do on the property. If the trees are posing any type of danger to the property or other, we're allowed to do what we need to do.
All right.
Just doesn't want us to clear the lot and.
No, that's fine.
Or just cut down trees because we feel like it. They have to be diseased.
I'd like to suspend the 3 reading rule.
Motion by Ms.
I'll second the
Domzalski,
motion.
seconded by Mr. Wojtusz. To suspend the 3 reading rule, Mr. Wojtusz,
Yes.
Magistrelli,
Yes.
Mr. Hips,
Yes.
Ms. Domzalski.
Yes.
Okay, motion's approved. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution?
Motion for passage.
Motion by Mr. Wojtusz, second. Anyone? Ms. Domzalski?
Yes.
Second.
Mr. Wojtusz,
Yes.
Mr. Magistrelli,
Yes.
Hips,
Yes.
Ms. Domzalski.
Yes.
Resolution passes. Next, we have resolution number 2020-36, an emergency resolution designating Law Director Bradrick Ryan as the Public Records Act training designee for 2020 For Mayor Nihes, Nicholas Magistrelli, Keith Scher, Renell Nowak, Gary Voitich, Alan Hips, and Jennifer Domzowski on first reading. And again, we are required to designate someone. It's my understanding, I don't think anyone has gone to a seminar this year except for me. So not ideal necessarily to have me be the designee. So I will get information out to everyone as to requirements. Everyone's supposed to go once during their term. I don't know of any scheduled seminars, but I will let anyone know. I think you can even do them online now. So
There are online seminars.
okay, so I will get information out to everyone and just the requirements. I know a lot of people have taken care of it in their term, some haven't, so we'll do that. But this is just housekeeping for the year. So if someone wants to suspend the 3 reading rule.
Motion to
I'll
suspend.
suspend the 3 reading.
Motion
Second.
by Mr. Magistrelli, seconded by, was it Mr. Hips or Voitich? I didn't hear.
Domzowski, I think it was.
Okay, Ms. Domzowski with the second to suspend the 3 reading rule. Mr. Voitich,
Yes.
Magistrelli,
Yes.
Mr. Hips,
Yes.
Domzowski.
Yes.
Okay, is there a motion to pass?
So moved.
Motion for
moved.
passage?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Hips, seconded by Ms. Domzowski. Mr. Voitich,
Yes.
Mr. Magistrelli,
Yes.
Mr. Hips,
Yes.
Ms. Domzowski.
Yes.
And last, we have Resolution 2020-37, an emergency resolution accepting the amounts and rates as determined by the Summit County Budget Commission and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the fiscal officer. This is something we do every year. The fiscal officer gives us the estimated revenues for the tax levies, and we have to certify them.
I'll make a motion to skip to 3 readings.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Voitich, seconded by Mr. Magistrelli. Mr. Voitich,
Yes.
Mr. Magistrelli,
Yes.
Mr. Hips,
Yes.
Domzowski.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll make a motion for passage.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Voitich, seconded by Mr. Magistrelli. Mr. Voitich,
Yes.
Mr. Magistrelli,
Yes.
Mr. Hips,
Yes.
Ms. Domzowski.
Yes.
Resolution passes, and that is it for the legislation, Mayor.
Is there any old business, new business, or announcements?
I'd
I
like
just
to
may
take,
say that, oh, go ahead.
I'd like to
Go ahead.
please take a moment for Officer James Strinovich, who was killed last week in Cleveland. Personal friend of the family. Known him for about 25 years, and everything they've said about him is absolutely true. And I just like to take a couple minutes or a couple seconds here and tell our services, our policemen, our servicemen, our firemen, our first responders to please be careful out there. We are living in some strange times right now, and it's just a damn shame that Officer Strinovich was part of that. I'd just like to take a couple minutes for his family and for the people of Northeast Ohio. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. That's it.
I would just like to say that Renell Nowak is not here today because I believe it was her mother's boyfriend had passed away, so she's with her family right now. So our thoughts are with Renell and her family right now.
Right.
Does
I'd
anyone
like to thank Gary for stepping in and being able to attend so we can have the meeting. So thanks, Gary.
Thanks, Gare.
You're welcome, guys.
Thank you. Does anyone have anything else today? Hearing none, do I hear adjournment?
I'd like to make a motion for adjournment.
Second?
Motion by Ms. Domzowski, seconded by Mr. Magistrelli. Mr. Voitish.
Yes.
Mr. Magistrelli.
Yes.
Mr. Hips.
Yes.
Ms. Domzowski. Okay,
Yes.
we are adjourned at 8:55. Thank you, everyone, and hope your wife's doing well, Gary.
Thank you. Good night.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Good night. All right,
Good
y'all,
night.
I got a question.
What's
I
the
gotta
question?
see who's here.